that'd be challenging because I think so. There's this like term in salesmanship called rejection fatigue. So, you know, you try and sell a product so many times and you get told no enough that you just kind of shut down. And I think that veterinarians have it, but I think it falls under compassion fatigue.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know, like, if you go into 3 really hard rooms and you try and talk to people about, like, products that you think would really help or blood work that you think would be, or other diagnostics, and for whatever reason, whether it's the way I present it or whether it's their circumstances, you just hear, like, no, 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 you're less likely the next room to be like, hey, I got this great idea, because you just feel sad and rejected.
Yeah, it's happening. Yeah, it's amazing. My sales reps, I have so much respect for them because they are in rooms all day long, every day, talking, and they get, you know, no, maybe, let's talk later. And they still come out and they're like, okay, I got this, let's do it. I'm not giving up. And
Right.
It's like a personality style that's like attracted to that. And with veterinarians, we, I think, have a lower tolerance perhaps for hearing that because it does wear on you. The constant, when you do hear repeatedly no, it's a very nice analogy in clinic when you're working with different owners and you hear the typical reasoning of, you know, I don't have money, or no, I don't want to spend money on this. So yeah, it can burn you out, and you have, just like in practice, you have those days that are amazing and you're on top of the world, and then you have the days where you're like, oh goodness, that was a lot of people time out there. It's very people-y. I don't know if I can do this again. But and you just pull yourself together and get back up.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of, like, when I was reading about it, because I was just curious if there was a term that had been adapted in veterinary medicine, and no one likes to think of veterinarians as salesmen. But the problem is that to a certain extent we have to be, because we have to promote products that we believe in, or procedures that we believe in, or tests that we think will help the pet, because whether people want to admit it or not, you know, pets are, under the law, still considered property. So I can't tell you what to do with your property. I can advise you on how best to treat it and how best to provide quality of life. And you know, we come up with terms like furry family member, and that's how I feel, right? Like, my dog is a part of my family. But I think we get so, I'm not a salesman, that's not what I do, that we get so upset by the rejection that I think if, as a veterinary practice, we kind of embrace the idea of, we have to approach it sometimes from the perspective of, you know, for instance, the drug reps that come, because they are selling us a product, but they're selling us a product because they fundamentally believe in it. Absolutely. Not the bottom line. So I think that BI should create like a training course for veterinarians on avoiding rejection fatigue. So there you go. That's my idea for you.
No, I appreciate that, because as you're saying, that's the idea that was coming into my head, because we do hear no so many times throughout the day, and having some sort of training on how to think of it as, you know, education, but take care of yourself. But we are selling / but really educating people on a daily basis, and they have to do with what they want. But it can be exhausting, especially getting pushed back or constantly having to justify your position or your recommendation. I can see that. So I like that idea. So I think some sort of training on like that communication aspect of education / finding a way to take care of yourself when you repeatedly hear the answer you don't want would be very helpful.
I mean, I'm sure I've had compassion fatigue and I just like stubborned through it. I had this idea of, like, in the exam rooms, you have these paddles that have like a red side and a green side. And basically you're just like, hold up red if you don't want me to tell you stuff, right? And hold up green if you want to hear it, because then I just don't waste my breath. And that's when I was like, oh, I feel like I'm probably a little bitter about my career.
It's like at the Brazilian steakhouse when you want or don't eat.
Exactly. Yeah.
My stomach's ready for more, or it's not.
Exactly. Yeah. My brain wants to hear it or I don't. So I think that would be so helpful sometimes.
Yeah, if we could just read minds. I'm the delegate for Virginia for the AVMA.
Oh, cool.
So I sit in the House of Delegates representing Virginia. So separate from BI, this is just an interest I've had for years, is being involved in organized veterinary medicine. Fairness to Pet Owners Act, it does require, if it were to be passed, that every pet owner receiving a prescription for their pet has to have a written script from us, even if they're purchasing it from us. Now, the AVMA is against this bill, of course. It's cumbersome to veterinarians. It isn't something that most of us would be on board with. So they have great resources on their website. The Governmental Relations Division office in Washington, D.C. is working really hard to make sure that we are actively not in support of this bill. And anything I can do to help with that, let me know too, just being in Virginia.
Well, and I already submitted my letters when it first came out, because to me, and I'm sure you can speak more on this, like, we work with an online pharmacy, vet source, and we know like everything is shipped and stored appropriately and the manufacturers uphold their guarantees. But a lot of people don't know, if you go to like any of the online pharmacies that are not regulated, they don't have to get things from the United States. They don't have to have the correct storage and shipping temperatures. And so,
but it's in part because this is what was happening. We were finding that animals weren't necessarily getting legitimate product, that there are problems with it. We are doing what we can to support that because we want to make sure enough animals are protected. You can't necessarily guarantee the source of the product, especially with some of the groups that might not be purchasing from the right places. There are definitely some changes to it, and we want to make sure the product is legitimate and coming to the veterinarian as it should. And to me, purchasing in the veterinary clinic is one of the ways they can do that most and secure that they have the right product. My personal goal, this is separate from BI, but one of my personal goals is to make sure all pharmacists that are dispensing veterinary products are trained on veterinary products, because cats are a whole unique beast. For example, prednisone versus prednisolone on what they can take and tolerate. And I would hope that pharmacists who are dispensing veterinary products are able to, tell those differences and are trained appropriately. So that's something personally I would like to work on, separate from BI, more of an AVMA endeavor.
Like, there's a lot of animosity between human pharmacists and veterinarians, like on both sides, because there's no communication, right?
I numbers, I hear all DEA licenses, I heard all,
Oh, yeah. Well, and they get mad at me because I got my DEA license before I changed my name when I got married. And it's like, it's fine because the DEA doesn't care, but like they care, so it's very confusing. But I agree. I think if we just open the lines of communication, it would make things a lot easier, because I feel like you waste time prepping your clients. Like, okay, I'm writing the script for Xanax. Like, they're going to tell you the dose is too high for your 10-pound puppy, but I'm telling you that they have to have a higher dose.
Yeah. And I appreciate like the fact checking, but it's because they're doing their job in that sense, but it does create confusion and questioning.
Right.
And and it's when you have to have the additional conversation with the owner and say, no, make sure you talk to the pharmacist. It's hard.
Well, and because all of their like drug interaction or their dosing are human based. So it's not, as far as I understand, they don't have like a plums to look up.
Yeah. And I would hope that's the direction we'll head. And I know like NC State has a wonderful residency training program for pharmacists who want to learn more about veterinary medicine. So they get trained in veterinary pharmaceuticals. So having pharmacists go through more training in that area, or taking some of them go through electives during their clinical years, will work in a veterinary hospital, would be really helpful, because, levothyroxine, that's one of my favorite examples of like the differences in doses between humans and dogs. I mean, drastic.
Right.
Magnitude's different. So that personally is just an area that's near and dear to my heart. And wanting to make sure we can get pharmacists on the same page as veterinarians and open those lines of communication, increase the training.
Thank you so much for being on my podcast.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Dr. Casey, and stay tuned. We'll hear the pet tales of Chewbaca and Cody.
We had a golden retriever growing up. His name was Chewbaca Alf. He lived until he was 17. It was awesome. I mean, it was the 80s, right? He walked us to school every single day, because our school was about a mile. Uphill both ways in the snow. But he legit walked, there was like 12 of us on our block, and he walked us to school. It was the corner before we had to cross the road. Walked us there every day, walked himself back home and put himself back in the backyard every day from when we were in my brother was in kindergarten until my younger sister left after 5th grade. Every single day, walked us to school. All the kids knew him. Nobody was afraid of him. All the neighbors knew him. But that was his job, is he walked us to school every day.
Well, Sarah was training him, and the people actually were abusive to him, and so we thought it might be a training issue. So she continued to train him, and she did a good job. And but the people, they just said they don't want him back, or they didn't want him back, and so I said, we love him, we'll keep him.
You got the best mommy.
They also said he was kind of vicious. You can see how gentle he is. So anyway,
that's the sound effects for the
Right.
for the story.
But he's just a sweetheart, so we love him. And that's how we got him.
Cool. See, that was a good story. All right, and then what about, like, because he can't blink, that one eye?
He was bit by a dog, and so we had to take him in, and he was stitched up, and fortunately it saved his eye, but now he can't blink.
I just think it looks like he's always giving you the stank eye.
Right.
He's like, I know what you're up to.
I think that about wraps it up. As always, thank you for listening to this installment of Vetsplaining. I hope you enjoyed your time with me and ideally learned at least one new thing for the day. If you have any questions or suggestions for future topics, feel free to leave a comment below or email info@independenthillvet.com and put podcast topic or podcast comment in the subject line. Until next time.